Hey everybody, how's it going? So I'm just sitting here working nights and 12 hours to do nothing but press buttons and think. Anyway, sorry about this light. It's whatever. Just pretend the angels are looking down on me. Anyway, so I was just thinking here, Alan Purdy just passed away, and for any of you who were lucky enough to know him, he was just an amazing guy. Alan wouldn't know me by name probably. He would know me to see me. I think he'd recognize me. We've met a few times, but I was always just blown away by, a guy like Alan. And then, I started thinking geez, I have been blessed to know a ton of guys like this. Now, Alan, I wasn't close with, but, back in college, I was able to meet a guy named John. And when I was in college, I lived with my aunt and my uncle in the Paw, Manitoba, and a neighbor down the road there was John, and they said, "Oh, you'll like John, he's a trapper." And so anyways, we got talking, of course, trapping. John was a painter and whatever. I was just some random person at that place and just started trapping, trapping. And so anyways, one thing leads to another, and one winter day, he comes over for a coffee. He says, "Hey, what are you doing this weekend?" "I don't know. I want to go beaver trapping." I'm like, "Of course I do." And off we went, and out into Summerberry Marsh, and he taught me how to trap under ice beaver. And a lot of the stuff that he taught me, I still do to this day, and and how to find the runs and all that kind of stuff, and that got me thinking to this last week here. If you were watching on the YouTube channel and stuff, I've been going after this top beaver. I want to try to get a top log beaver, and a couple guys that Eric was a student of mine in the Bethune course this year. And this Matthew fella who I've never met, and both of them offered, I just said, I need some help. I'm too old and fat, and wouldn't somebody mind helping? And these two tagged along, and as far as I know now, Matthew's out trapping beavers himself and stuff, and it's just awesome to see, how, John taught me, I'm teaching these guys, and on and on and on. And then there was Steve, my Steve. The guy was just amazing. I knew him for over 30 years. He was like a father to me. Taught me so much about life and everything, and all of my fur handling, that's all Steve. That was, just sitting there staring at him working that beam, asking 1,000 questions, and then getting enough nerve to, okay, I'm going to bring a skin over, because he wouldn't let me touch any of his, obviously, because it was taxidermy stuff too. He wasn't as much of a trapper as he was a skinner. So obviously I'm not going to grab somebody's, trophy elk cape and start learning, So I bring some skins over and on and on and on, and he'd sit there and he'd bark at me and tell me what I'm doing wrong and doing right and everything, and da-da-da-da. And eventually, I become the guy now that a lot of people have, asked me about, like, how do you do this skinning? How do you do that? And that's all from Steve. Joel, one of the guys I went to school with, he's still up in the Paw. Joel is one of those amazing people. To talk to Joel, and I know he'll never see this because Joel doesn't have any social media or anything, but he is one of those guys who, talking to him is like an interrogation. You have to ask a question, he gives you an answer, and then that's it. But that guy is got an absolute amazing ability of being able to read Mother Nature. And I can't even hold a candle to this guy. Like, this guy is amazing. But he's the one who taught me how to power snare coyotes, Pete Wise out in Vancouver, or in BC there. Pete and I met at the North American Fur Auction and in Toronto there, and we hit it off right away, started talking skunks and this and that. And anyways, I was out in BC there, and everybody was laughing. It's like, "Oh, Pete loves this. He's got a gate bitch today." Sorry for the term, but somebody to open and close all the gates, because Pete's that's his job, is he's a nuisance trapper. And for me, it was like, I don't care, I'll open gates. This was only a few years ago, so it wasn't like I was a kid or anything anymore. But the thing is Pete, we're going out there and we're at the Kelowna airport. He, does nuisance raccoons there, so they don't get on the airstrip and everything. He said, "Okay, we got a dirt hole set here." He says, I was like, "Okay." And he gives me the stuff, and we look at him, and like, "I've never set one." He looked at me like, "What do you mean you've never set one? You've caught thousands of coyotes." I'm like, "Never set a dirt hole in my life. Never made a dirt hole in my life. Never done it." So there's Pete, sitting there telling me what I'm doing, do this, do that, And that was only a couple of years ago, always learning from these people. And another one was, there's a couple guys, back when I was a teenager, there was it was in the 90s, whatever, and late 80s after the big fur crash, and nobody trapped anymore. Like, there was nobody out there. So I'd, pick up these Fur Fish Game and Trapper and Predator Caller magazines, and I'd sit there and, read them cover to cover to cover to cover. And I started realizing that I'd pick up the Trapper and Predator Caller, and the first article I'd always go to was the one of fur bearer biology, and was always written by Serge. And I started realizing, he's a biologist and everything, and not to be against the Americans, but man, you guys are Americans. It's a different world of trapping over there. Let's just say that. But Serge would always talk kind of my language, like, why are the animals doing this? Why is this? Why is that? And I understood that and really drew a lot from that one. In 2015, when I was at the North American Fur Auction there, I was able to just, all of a sudden there's this guy walking, and holy crap, that's Serge, It was kind of like seeing your childhood idol, and so we got to meet and talk and pick his brain and everything, and everybody's laughing, that's Ryan's new man crush and whatever. So Serge was another one of those guys, and we've, got to talk over the years now and stuff like that. We're not super close or anything, but, he's always been one of those guys, especially from when I was younger. And another one was Dave Buick. The only person that I could ever think that getting hauled into an office. I'll back up. There's a little bit of a story. So I'm at the North American Fur Auction. I went there alone. It turns out that I met up a bunch of guys from Alberta. I get there the day before the guys from Alberta. I'm looking at these top block coyotes. And that's what I thought. Very wrongly, what top block coyote was supposed to be. And I'm looking at these coyotes and going, I don't get it. This makes no sense. So like an idiot, I posted on Facebook, like, this makes no sense. Da-da-da-da-da. So the next day, I'm in there, and I start talking to this guy that works at NAFA. And anyways, he says, hang on, this is the guy you want to talk to. This is Darcy. And anyway, so I started talking about Darcy, and we got these top block coyotes there. And I said, so when the grader's looking at these, why is this, why is this? And finally he stopped after about 15 minutes, and he looked and he goes, I am the grader. I'm like, oh, okay. He says, I've graded every coyote that went through North American Fur Auction since 1986. I'm the grader. Well, all right then. So anyway, Darcy showed me what he's really looking for on a coyote and everything, and wow, were my eyes open. I got to spend an hour and a half with him, kind of showed me coyotes and everything. But, so after that, I've already posted the, Facebook, I don't get it. Then Darcy gives me the, this is what I'm looking for. Then all of a sudden, Dave comes over and says, hi, Ryan, can I speak to you in the office, please? Sure. I'm a guest. I get hauled into the office. Felt like I was at the principal's office, and I get dressed down. Very politely, I might add. Very politely. But I will never forget Dave Buick saying, Ryan, this is North American Fur Auctions, not North American Fur Competition. And that was one of the biggest things that opened my eyes about the industry. Was what we think as trappers was important isn't as important as we think. And to see the industry from the auction perspective and the buyers and the grading and everything, and see how the industry looks at fur versus how trappers look at fur, that was a huge eye-opener. So yeah, Dave and Darcy and, that whole experience there at NAFA. And then on the way back, I stopped in Winnipeg, and of course seen Mary there. And then Glenn gave me a caster demonstration, and like all these people have just been amazing, so just it's been one of those things. It's just amazing how many people over the years. And now again, this is my passion, so it's one of those things that I always lean towards talking about trapping if at all possible. And if you get around these people in the industry, well, that's all I want to talk about. It's just one of the things. It's just my passion. So anyway, that's kind of a few of the people. There's so many out there that just amazing people in the industry. A lot of, little tips and tricks here and there and stuff like that. But those are the ones that really stand out for me personally. So anyway, thank you to all those people. And when I was editing this, and of course there's a million things that keep coming up after the fact, but another huge thank you was obviously to my dad. He's the one who got me trapping in the first place when I always say, I don't remember if I was 3 turning 4 or 4 turning 5. My birthday's October 12th. Beaver trapping started October 15th. So I don't remember exactly where, but I always just say I was 4 years old. I'm 49. I've been trapping for 45 years. He went out trapping for $1. That was when beavers were averaging $40, $50, $60, back in the mid 70s or whatever it was. And he didn't do it as much as just for the money. But he dragged me along, and you know, being 4 years old, I didn't know what money was or anything at the time. Fell in love with it. So obviously, you know, major thank you to him, because if it wasn't for him, none of this, my whole life would have taken a whole different trajectory or whatever. The other one, I had a couple of people watch this, just kind of proofread it, and they were like, well, what about Rich Mellon from Trapping Inc. TV? And with Rich, where I really value what he's doing is he promotes the industry so well. He is such a good voice for trappers. Whether you like him or not, whether you don't agree with the show or whatever, that's immaterial. But the bottom line is it's #1 rated show on the whole network. He's very big, and it's a very popular show, and he promotes trapping. When Rich and I go out trapping together, like I've done 3 episodes there with him now, it's kind of like, it's the opposite. I still feel like a teacher around Rich. He's taught me a few things here and there too, though, don't get me wrong. But anyway, for Rich, thank you for all the promotion you do for the industry. That's another huge one. Thank you. Sorry about all these weird breaks in here, but I keep thinking of extra things. The one thing that I found that all of these people have in common is a few different things, but #1, they're not vanilla type people, okay? These are all people that they live. They really know how to live. Like, they're not afraid of what people think. They go out there and they have these amazing stories, these amazing lives, you know. Not one of them rich and famous or anything, but they just have these amazing lives. To sit down and talk to them, the stories. Oh my God, the stories. You know, like John would sit down at that table, you know, having coffee one time, and he would tell us, actually it was Shirley, his wife, and she'd sit there and say, well, what about that time you never came home for 2 months, you know? And then they'd sit there and tell you the story how John was sent to town to get milk, and when he went to get milk, he met up with a whole bunch of other guys trapping, and they were getting their grub order and everything, and he disappeared for 2 months and went muskrat and beaver trapping, and came back and 2 months later and put milk on that counter, you know? Just, you know, like some crazy stuff that, you know, like, anybody that would do something like that, you know, like, it's just, you couldn't even imagine, like, the truth is stranger than fiction, but, you know, like, the stories these people would tell, some of the amazing experiences they've had, you know, like Alan, you know, sit there and talk to him, you know, 14,000 squirrels, how he tucked them in his waist to thaw them as he was walking, and, like, he says, I was just sick of squirrels that year, and, you know, but 14,000 squirrels, like, that's just unfathomable to me, you know, like, just the dedication and the endurance and everything, you know. Steve, a gazillion different stories, you know, everything from, you know, him and his buddy Bud there, you know, getting out the old winter jacket and throwing a cat in there and pull it off, you know, get out the scalpel and pull the testicles out of these cats, you know, in the garage, or somebody throwing a live mink in the garage. Here, I got something for you to skin, Steve, you know, and this damn mink running around in the garage, and nobody freaking out, just like, oh shit, you dumb bastard, now this garage is gonna stink, you know. But, you know, like, just these amazing people, amazing stories, you know. So that's one thing. They're not vanilla people. They're just larger than life kind of people. I always, you know, like Tony Beats from Gold Rush, he's one of those kind of people. He's larger than life, and he doesn't care. He's just like, that's the kind of people these guys are. Like, they're just some amazing people, just to sit there and be able to pick their brains and hear the stories. The other thing, Steve kind of summed it up the best, but this is really true amongst all of them, was he said, I'm a hunter, I'm a fisherman, I'm a trapper, but most of all, I'm a conservationist. And that's the one thing is, you know, the trappers are painted as these people are just bloodthirsty killers. Obviously, we know that's not true. But we're not, like, he especially really embodied it. Like, he loved trapping, but he knew, you know, you only trap when the season's on. You know, like, you really have these amazing respect for wildlife. You see the bigger picture, that you're not just out there, and they don't look at wildlife as a dollar. Yes, there is an element of money in trapping, absolutely. But more than that, it's not all about the money. And I'm not saying that against anybody who's trapping just for the money. That's an important part of the industry too. But these people are really fascinated by nature, you know. Like Steve always used to tell me, there's no such thing as an ugly animal. You know, when we start talking about, you know, weird, you know, ugly animals or this and that, he goes, no, every animal's interesting, you know, and he'd sit there and he would watch this ant running around on the floor, and you just sit there, have a cigarette and just stop and watch an ant, or a little potato bug or something, He was always fascinated by that kind of stuff. He was always fascinated with that. That's what I think where I get a lot of it from too, is because I always tell my students in the courses, I says, don't take any traps, don't take any guns, don't do nothing. Go sit on a beaver house. And not just sit there for 5 minutes, go sit there for 5 hours. In the dusk, well into dark, and just watch. I said, I can talk till I'm blue in the face. That's what's going to teach you. And learning from the animals, learning from nature, getting there and just having that appreciation of something bigger than you. And being part of it, that's a lot of what I see is a commonality between all these people. They're the true trappers. They're not just after it for the money. Yes, the money element's in there, absolutely, but it's more than just the money. The money is a bonus, I guess you could say. So anyway, sorry for all the little tangents and everything, but people. I'm trying to think, like, there were so many people in my life that I was just lucky to be able to draw my knowledge from, and having these people who were willing to part with their information, because when I was a kid in the, 70s into the 80s, everything was a secret. Oh, you have to have this special lure, you have to have this secret, or you got to do this, or pay me $10,000, I'll teach you how to trap a beaver, and that drove me nuts, and that's what I like about nowadays is everybody tells it all, there's not really anybody that's afraid to tell their secrets kind of thing, so to speak. But anyway, it just got me thinking about all these legends and how they've affected me, living and dead now, and just, it's awesome to know you guys, and all you guys who help other people, thank you. So, take those kids trapping. That was me once upon a time. Yeah, so let me hear your stories about whoever's helped you out. Who do you draw information from, and what got you into trapping? And it's always usually a father or grandfather, uncle or something, but there's usually somebody else in there that really teaches you a lot of really cool things. So anyway, to all you guys out there who are teaching the kids or teaching anybody for that matter, thank you. Have a good one.